What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here to break down, once again, this weekend's UFC main event at UFC Winnipeg between Gilbert Burns and Mike Malott. We'll also take a look at the co-main event between Jourdain and Kyler Phillips through a data perspective. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder at Occupy Fantasy, and every single week we put the UFC card through our projection model to see where the data disagrees with the betting markets and public perception. Now, if you watched this video on the channel last week, where we talked about weaknesses are magnified once you get to the highest level, especially when it comes to the data. And in that video, we mentioned how there were weaknesses and why Yuri Prohaska was ranked below Carlos Ulberg significantly in our model. We talked about why Azamat Murzakanov was a vulnerable favorite based on the data. And this week, the data once again tells a pretty clear story for this main event, especially when it comes to weaknesses. Now, Mike Malott is a big favorite in this fight. And you may be thinking, yeah, rightfully so. Gilbert Burns is on a skid. Malott is the prospect, younger guy. Except he's not the younger guy. Somehow these guys are the same age, which is pretty insane to think about considering where they are at this point in their careers. The money line has actually moved quite significantly throughout the week. I'm recording this Thursday afternoon. I'm going to show you how the money line has been moving. And let's go full screen here so you guys can see this fully. But once this fight opened in the betting markets, Gilbert Burns was around a 445 underdog. Now, there wasn't much volume, and then this weekend, early in the week, volume opened up, and you see the big drops. He's all the way down to a plus 245 underdog on the money line. More than 100 cents in a single week, which is, you don't see that very often, especially earlier in fight week. And our model actually agrees. Our model has Gilbert Burns as the highest ranked underdog on this 13 fight card, despite being the second biggest money line underdog. So you think about that, that's pretty wild. Now, a lot of the value has been sucked out of this, but given where these two guys rank in our model, our model still feels that this is too big, too wide of a money line for Gilbert Burns here in this spot. And why is that? Let's look at their fights. And I'll pull you back up on screen here so you guys can see me. And this is the co-main event. Let's go to the main event. And we'll start with Gilbert Burns here. And you look at his recent fights. Okay, 4-fight losing skid. Not great. Not someone you want to bet on typically. But most recent fight, got knocked out by the biggest welterweight on the entire planet. 2 fights ago, 5-round fight. One of the best grapplers on the planet. Hard to blame that loss. 3 fights ago, he was 90 seconds away from defeating the eventual welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena. Won 2 rounds, starting to win round 3, and then got knocked out late. And then 4 fights ago, he got hurt early in this fight, but eventually lost a 5-round decision to the eventual welterweight champion in Bilal Muhammad. So 0-4 doesn't look great, but you compare that to Mike Malott here. Some would argue he needed a low blow to defeat Kevin Holland. Won that decision. Defeated Charles Racky. Great. Had one of the worst, most boring decisions against Trevin Giles after gassing and losing to Neil Magny late 4 fights ago. The strength of schedule is incomparable. You cannot compare who these guys have been fighting recently. So you look at that and you see why, okay, maybe that's why the money line has been shrinking some. But if we look at the actual data, and the big reason our model likes Gilbert Burns a lot in this fight. Let's just be clear though. Mike Malott ranks highly too. He's well-rounded, finishes guys, has fought some guys in the UFC at a higher level. And again, Burns is on a 4-fight losing streak. Maybe he is washed. We'll see. So our model does like Malott in this fight as well, but it's saying that the gap should not be nearly as large as the money line is indicating. Tail of the tape. Let's see here. Let's pull it up. And I'll go full screen once again so you guys can see this. And we see that, yes, Malott holds the striking advantages here. More significant strikes landed per minute, a higher significant strike accuracy, gets hit less on the feet than Gilbert Burns does. But this next section is where Gilbert Burns holds a massive advantage in this fight. Attempts more than 5 takedowns per 15 minutes, has a greater takedown defense than Mike Malott does. And this takedown defense number, 28%, it's actually higher than what you'll see on UFCstats.com. Our model runs regression based on opponents. His actual takedown defense in the UFC is 14% for Mike Malott. If we go back to his fights, taken down by Kevin Holland, taken down by Neil Magny, taken down by Mickey Gall, taken down by whoever the hell Shimon Smotritsky is on the Contender Series. Yeah, that's not great. And this isn't just a UFC phenomenon for Mike Malott. We charted all of his pre-UFC fights before he came into the UFC. And against regional opponents, he had a sub 40% takedown defense too. So takedown defense has been a problem for Mike Malott his entire career, and at 34, 35, however old he is, that's not going to just randomly improve. And now you're getting a match at one of the best grapplers on the planet in Gilbert Burns. That's a big reason why our model has Gilbert Burns ranked so highly. He could dominate Malott on the mat here. Now, he could very easily, it could be like the Jack Della Maddalena fight, where he wins a couple of rounds, dominates a couple of rounds, and then gets caught on the feet. Very possible here. But our model was saying that there's a chance for Burns to dominate this fight on the mat. So, let's go back here. So what our model is telling us is there's still some value left. Yes, we'd love to tell you the value bet Burns earlier in the week, but our model is still saying that Burns should not be a plus 255 underdog or wherever he is at certain sports books. Now, the value play in this fight is certainly Gilbert Burns. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the co-main event, Charles Jourdain and Kyler Phillips. Before we do, quick reminder, if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to our free cheat sheet. Links in the description below. You'll get analysis for 3 more fights that we don't discuss here on YouTube. Again, it's free. Link is in the description below for that to get emailed to you every single week. So, Jourdain, Kyler Phillips. Let's pull up the tail of the tape here, and I will go full screen once again so you can see this. Point blank, our model says the wrong fighter is favored in this fight. Jourdain is a small favorite here. Our model has Phillips rated much higher. In fact, his projection is nearly 20% higher than Charles Jourdain. That's kind of crazy to think about. Our model has identified a lot of these wrong favorite spots this year and in the past, and normally it's a pretty good spot to jump on the underdog when that happens. So Jourdain, we'll see, has the striking, at least a striking volume and accuracy advantage over Phillips, but Phillips gets hit less, attempts more takedowns, higher takedown defense, more control time, doesn't defend as many subs, or doesn't attempt as many subs as Jourdain, and that's where basically all of Jourdain's win equity comes in this fight. Let's go to the schedule once again, and we'll look at Charles Jourdain. Look at his recent fights here. Sub win over Davey Grant. Sub win, loss, loss, sub win. Decision win, admittedly, but over one of the worst fighters ever to grace the UFC roster. No pun intended. Loss, loss, guillotine win, decision win. So basically, if he's not catching you in the guillotine, he has not been winning. Sorry, Charles Jourdain fans. Compared to Kyler Phillips. Yes, last 2 fights haven't gone his way. Against Vinicius Oliveira, against Rob Font. Though, he did win the first round in all of those fights. In fact, he's run the first round in every single UFC fight that he has been in, which is a pretty impressive accomplishment. The biggest problem with Kyler Phillips has been his inability to apply that pace and that volume in the second and third round of fights. It's been extremely frustrating if you've been on Kyler Phillips to see him just completely not throw or do anything in the second half of fights. So obviously that's the concern here. But based on Jourdain's style and how he's been winning, Phillips has never been finished. Phillips' only losses have been in decisions. And again, our model is always going to catch on to this. You should not be a favorite if your record in decisions is 2-6 in the UFC. And that's where Jourdain lies. 2 decision wins in the UFC, 6 decision losses in the UFC. So unless he's catching you in a guillotine, the odds are he's not winning this fight. And should that make someone a favorite over who's a fringe top 15 fighter in the UFC in their weight class? Our model says no. So, in fact, I think Phillips has some finishing upside in this fight as well. If you like Jourdain, just bet him by submission, because the odds are he's not going to win this fight any other way. Sure, he could win maybe a split decision late if Phillips fights how he has been fighting recently, but our model says Kyler Phillips is the guy that should win this fight, and he is wrongfully the underdog in the betting markets. All right, let's go back on screen here. That's a breakdown of 2 fights for this card. And we're going to break down a few more. There's 6 debuting fighters on this card this weekend. So make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. We're going to put out some YouTube shorts Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to get a lay of the land on some of these debuting fighters. You don't want to miss that. You just check our channel. If you're not subscribed already, you'll see those shorts get posted. And again, the cheat sheet, you'll get 3 more fights that we don't discuss here on YouTube. Free analysis based on what our model is telling us. You want full model rankings, you want full slate write-ups, make sure you check out occupyfantasy.com/membership. Links in the description below. We have a community of people who love the UFC and love playing DFS and betting on UFC, and we'd love to have you. If you want the full edge, some of you just want the free information, and we respect that. That's why we do these videos. But you want every edge that you can possibly find when it comes to UFC, check out occupyfantasy.com. So I'm Brian for Occupy. Thanks for listening. Good luck and enjoy UFC Winnipeg.